Hi there. Welcome to the Williamson Watchers Special Election Podcast. We are so pleased to bring you interviews with the current candidates in the Tennessee 7 Congressional Republican primary. Here were the rules. We asked the same set of questions to each candidate. We estimated each podcast would take about 15 minutes, but we allotted a half an hour block for each. We have held the release of the podcast until all the candidates wishing to participate were able to participate, therefore not giving an advantage to any one candidate. We invited all 11 candidates. We're happy to showcase here 7 candidates who are in the Tennessee Republican primary. The candidates joining us are Jody Barrett, Gino Bolso, Adolph Dagan, Mason Foley, Joe Lures, Stuart Parks, and Tres Wittum. Stuart Cooper was unable to record due to scheduling conflicts. We did not receive a response from candidates Jason Knight, Lee Reeves, and Matt Van Epps. We hope you are able to watch or listen to all the candidates. You will certainly get to know the candidates better, become better informed on some of the issues, and perhaps be surprised by a candidate or two. Remember, we are not journalists. We are the Republican Party of Williamson County. Our goal was to have all of our Republican candidates do well and give them an opportunity to speak to you directly on their platform and ideas. They did not disappoint. As a follow-up, we are holding a debate on September 15th, 2025 at the Church of the Nazarene in Franklin at 7 p.m. We hope that you can attend and see for yourself the quality of candidates Tennessee 7 can produce. This debate will be moderated by Fox News and 99.7 WWTN commentator Brian Wilson. You can send us questions for the candidates at tennessee7@williamsongop.org. Now on to the Williamson Watchers. Welcome to the Williamson Watcher Podcast. I'm Peg Ricidi with the Williamson County Republican Party. Alongside me is Elliot Franklin, my cohort at the party. Today we welcome candidate Tres Wittum, who is running for Congress in Tennessee 7. Welcome, Tres Wittum.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us. So the first question, an easy question. Can you just tell us about yourself?
Well, I'm Tres Wittum. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. So I'm used to fighting in the minority, being a Republican in a very blue area. But it's about time we change that, I think, right? I got my start in politics. I'm certainly not new. I started in politics on a college campus where your truth is challenged. I always tell people it was a moment where you feel like your truth is challenged and you have an option. Either sit lower in your chair and hope that time goes by quicker, or you stand up and speak out. And I've always had a bad habit of standing up and speaking out and speaking up for truth. That led me to a career in the Tennessee Senate. I worked 11 years with the Speaker Pro Tem in the Senate Finance, Ways and Means. What an education. A lot of people go to school K through 12. I did that. Went to college, went to the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Like I said, led the college Republicans. I was the state chairman of the Tennessee College Republicans. But that led me to an education in the Tennessee Senate, where I got to sit behind the appropriators of our state at a time where disruption policy has occurred. And I've got to learn what matters to Tennesseans from the Tennessee checkbook, our Tennessee values from the Tennessee checkbook, the Tennessee budget, the most important bill, the only bill they're really supposed to Congress for every year. So I got to see what those values were behind the Tennessee checkbook. In 2022, I stepped out and ran for the Tennessee 5th. It was a new district. It was right after COVID, and everything had started changing. And again, you feel like you have this education of 11 years helping constituents build policy and learn what mattered most. And you're like, how do you how do you serve? Do you go sell refrigerators? So I stepped up, I ran. I do think I was the best candidate in that race. I've been right on the policies. I don't believe I've embarrassed too many people since then. But it didn't work out in my favor, right? So what do? Right? You got to keep going. If you believe in something, you believe in yourself, and you're right, you got to keep going. And so I kept moving. Last summer, I ran in the U.S. Senate primary. And I had 43,000 Tennesseans stand with me. 10,000 were right here in the 7th district. And I've been right on the issues. I said, let's end the federal income tax. Let's repeal the 17th Amendment of the United States Constitution, the direct election of senators. Why we got to get the Senate under control. Our nation's in so much fiscal debt. How do you get this thing under control? Well, I say the system's broke, right? Our founding fathers set up a democratic republic that got broke at the 17th Amendment. So the 16th Amendment, the 17th Amendment, they're terrible. So these things keep driving me to say, you got to keep going. I mean, let alone the issues that are more relevant, like immigration. I worked with, at my time in working in the Tennessee Senate, I helped organize the committee that looked at those illegals that came in the middle of the night in Chattanooga. I dealt with that. I reached out to the U.S. Senator's office and they were silent. All the federal delegation was silent. All these people were silent. But they make for good news stories, but they were silent because I was there. And it drove me to stand up and speak out. It drove me to run for Congress. It drove me to run for the U.S. Senate. And I'm glad I did, because I have noticed a difference in these politicians since I did that. You got to hold their feet to the fire. Somebody's got to really know what's up and call them out. So again, it's not necessarily always about what you think is the ideal win, but are you moving the needle? And so I've been very proud over the past 3 years to say I've moved the needle. I hadn't won the election, but I have won the arguments because I've been right. And so here I am again at an extraordinary time. This is a special election, right? Mark Green quit on us. He quit midterm, which was another difficulty I've been running against. Look, I'm a grassroots person. Tres Wittum is a grassroots person. I'm not the big money pharma, big pack money sellouts that some of our other folks have chosen to be for whatever reason. I knew it would take me a few times to go around the track. I knew it would take me to do some times of this, to meet people and share with real people conversation, let people know, like, I'm a real guy. I've listened to us. I've been a part of the conversation personally. So this moment found who's ready. And so, I'm still ready. I'm still here. So I've determined, and people just keep telling me, don't quit. You're not going to quit, right? You're going to run again. And so I didn't set the terms, Congressman Green did, but I'm ready. You found me.
Awesome. Thanks, Trace, for that background. So help us understand, we hear different folks in different communities when they talk about being conservative. How do you define the term conservative?
Well, there's a couple ways to define conservative, right? Socially and fiscally. I'd like to think I'm both. But at the same time, I'm also pretty much into freedom. I got asked last night, are you a libertarian? No, I would define myself as a conservative Republican. But in a world where everyone thinks they're conservative Republicans, I realize we all start kind of thinning. I define mine by, look, actually right here, it's the King James Version, the Word of God. This is the God Bless the USA Bible, which I'm helping President Trump put in schools because it is the 4 documents of our country, the founding documents, and it's the King James Version. I think that's a very conservative thing to do. I think that when we talk about a moral compass, who are you and what do you believe? Well, there's a lot of different issues here, but I'll tell you, I at least try. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I do try to align with what's in this book on both sides of it, right? And of course, that's a novelty book with our Constitution in it. So I mean that on both sense. It needs to be with our Constitution. Some things in the Constitution actually should be repealed, as I've said. But the King James Version of the Bible tells you how to live your life. On a fiscal side, we talk about this from a family budget perspective, right? That means to be conservative. It means that, yeah, you still want to live well. You still want to be able to afford new things. Not everybody has to have hand-me-down things, but it means being thoughtful. I say recycling in the sense of not just like recycling paper, but recycling things that you have, being reusable in your resources, and not overspending, not going out and just doing the new thing because all the friends have it. Again, like I said, that doesn't mean that people still want to buy a new car, and you deserve that when you work hard, right? But it doesn't mean going to debt. And it certainly, if we have to live this way, like real people, because we feel obligated to pay our bills and we know the bank will come get us, then we would expect the politicians in Washington to do that, which hasn't happened. all these conservative folks, which hasn't happened. The other thing with conservatism too, I'm an environmental conservatism, right? I do love the outdoors. I grew up, my grandpa owned a large farm. And so conservationism was a big part of, my childhood, who I am, hunting, fishing, understanding the outdoors. So I think to me, that's all conservative. It's really the American way.
Thanks. So you are about to be in a Republican primary election. We currently have open primaries. Do you think that Tennessee should have open primaries or closed primaries?
Well, this one is good because I'm going to answer this. I'm a candidate now, right? But also I'm going to put my college Republican state chairman hat on because there's kind of two different, right? There's like the politics party side of this. You always do see a lot of advantage. First off, I think that Republicans should vote in Republican elections, period, right? But I also grew up listening to the great Rush Limbaugh, and Operation Chaos was a real strategy, and that's how they messed with Obama. And so the politics is strategy. I think you hear the folks that really kind of cry for that. Like, for instance, there's a governor's race, and I think the person's just worried that people will do anything they can to get rid of a certain candidate, right? And so they're worried about that kind of stuff. You're worried about Democrat. How about you just say, we're going to serve Tennesseans? Because that's what my job as a congressman is going to be. I'm going to be a conservative Republican. So that's what's going to get me elected. But end of the day, I'm here to serve the constituents of the Tennessee 7th, not serve the party chair or the party chair specific. That is our party leaders. Again, we're going to party together and decide what kind of moral compass and policies we want. But the congressman is the congressman. So quite frankly, elections, and here's the other thing about the elections, that just whatever this is, if we're also going to say that we want to be conservative with the budget, the state pays for these elections. Okay, so I got charged $2,500 to be in this. I paid $5,000 to run for the U.S. Senate. I paid $2,500 again to run for Congress. That's $10,000. I paid $10,000 in the party. Okay, the state pays for this election. So right. If the state pays for the election, then the taxpayer of Tennessee has every right to vote every time they have a chance. And I think that's fair. And if you don't like it, then we should, be the conservative Republicans we are and pay for our own elections then. But that's probably not going to happen. So there's only so much, because again, it's a lot of just party trickery happens. There's just ways to make sure people can't. And I'm one of those guys. Look, if you have something to say, we should allow people to say it. If you have a vote, we should allow people to vote. Election integrity. Look at the straw polls. There's no election integrity, and we practice those every time we get together. So all this kind of stuff, I appreciate the closed primaries, open primaries. Here's the deal. I'm a conservative Republican. That's who I'm partying with. If you vote for Tres Wittum, you voted for a conservative Republican, Tres Wittum, and those ideals.
Understand. So, you talked about a lot with that answer in terms of politicians and just the system and how games are played. If you were to win and move up to DC, how are you going to protect yourself from what we like to refer to as the swamp, the environment up there that kind of just sucks you in, and a lot of folks then forget who they're representing?
Well, I guess that's one reason why I've chose to kind of do it. I'll call it the hard way. I certainly haven't got the $1 million money coming into me. I've really chose to do a lot of grassroots way, and go the hard way, but I really appreciate that because it builds character. I'm a runner. I've actually just finished 30 months in a row. I do a minimum of 100 miles a month. It's a personal thing that I do. Right. And I've been very proud of it, but that's been so much character building and mindset, because you just really realize who you are every step of the way. It's been a rain, shine, extreme heat, cold. But these are all personal things. You got to get in a good headspace, because up there is a lot of deception, all kind of lie, cheat, and steal. So first off, you have to just know who you are. And and then the next thing is you have to have the responsibility to remember who sent you there and what they expect of you. You're their representative. So when you go in the room, how you act is a representative of them, right? So again, you've got to remember that, but who are you as a person? And so I've really, taken that to heart and really tried to build personal character. I am, having spent 11 years around the Tennessee state legislature, I'd gone to the receptions. I know the lobbyists, it's not a personal mark on them, but it's the system. It's the way that it is. But you watch how people will be very scared to keep their seat because they find self-identity in this. And that's when they start making the compromises. They do everything to protect themselves. Look, this isn't my seat. Okay. I'm not going to be here forever. Quite frankly, I'm already deciding, Trace, when you win this, when will you be gone? Because I think you should have some exit strategy. When is enough enough? What am I really here for? If you don't actually have a goal, you're going to stay forever. And I say that on purpose because if you don't have the goal, then you start compromising what's forever. And that's where all the extra stuff come in. So look, I'm trying to be focused on what I'm up there for. And I've tried to mentally and physically prepare for it so that the compromising, I stay mentally tough and aware, no compromise.
Well, that just goes right into the next question about exit strategy. Do you support term limits?
Absolutely. In two ways. Yes, I have to say I support term limits because they are kind of different. But when I say repeal the 17th Amendment of the United States Constitution, as a summary, we're in huge financial crisis.
Yep.
The financial health of this country, the debt, and of course, everybody was kind of cheering that Mark Green was the one vote that passed the big, beautiful spending spree. And in a lot of ways, like I said, there's probably a lot of great things in there. There's an old saying that there's more good ideas than there is money. So there's that, right? So you have to start looking at it because the problem is when people stay there too long, the first thing they said that the appropriation that they got the first year that they were there, they're still trying to keep the 60th year they're there, plus all the other ones that were added. So the door doesn't ever spin. And they've got more and more buddies because they've been there a long time, which is natural. And so none of these doors are spinning and they just keep piling on and piling on. And again, these guys never had to really run for re-election because they got the big money. So the fat cats literally are fat. They don't run for re-election. They just got the big money. And it's what keeps them there. It's all the big pharma money. It's the money that's poisoned and perverted this country. And so, yeah, I'm clearly aware that I'm probably not favored on a lot of those levels. That's probably why a lot of folks hadn't heard of Trace. Because Trace is well aware and he's willing to educate the public on what's going on. But again, repeal the 17th Amendment because that's a direct election of senators. The Senate was supposed to be the ambassadors of the state house. The people were supposed to represent, obviously, the people, the populace. And that was how we're supposed to get these federal budgets, right? The problem is we have these elected, again, because the system, you have these elected senators for 6 years that, I mean, they're not even answering their phones at year 5 until year 5.5 when they're running for re-election. And they answer to no one, right? And then it's the same, you can't get them out. And it's the same thing in the House, except the House just stays forever, right? And then they just wait to run for the Senate. And so you've got to add term limits. I have signed the term limits pledge. I believe they said it was six years for the House and 12 years for the Senate is the legislation. Of course, they said that's not something I agree to, but it's a good start. And I'm like, hey, look, here's the deal. If people want me gone in 6 years, they want me gone in 6 years. This isn't my life, but it is something I'm trying to focus on. But if that is what has to be, then it's called sacrifice. It's called go up there and then you take the plunge for the good of the country.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, this question is right in line with that. We see a lot of politicians, and especially in Congress, that go up there and then all of a sudden become extremely wealthy from trading stocks. Would you support a ban on members of Congress from trading stocks?
Yes. Well, that's tricky. I say yes because the simple answer is yes. I think everybody thinks that's fair. How you implement that, I've actually I've tried to think about it because to be fair, now this because it's a podcast, we can actually discuss this. It's kind of hard to not understand what's going to happen when they've literally come tell you, here's what we need, or here's what's going to happen, or literally if we pass this bill, it's going to bankrupt this industry, or it's going to, I mean, if you're an aware person, you're obviously aware. The integrity, I guess, comes when they play the games, like when everybody made money on the Zoom and then they like shut the world down on some fake biological warfare virus on us or whatever happened. Yeah, then they all made money. You're like, wait a minute. Things like I actually worked on some policy that was very interesting. I guess since I don't know if it was connected, I'll save exactly the name, but they were working on robots to deliver groceries to your door. And it was right before COVID. Well, how could you not think that was going to be a hit? I mean, hey, did you know they're delivering groceries now through robots? That's probably a good company. So there are some things that, if you're a business person, you want a good savvy business person here, and then you expect them to not be savvy. But there's a difference when you look at these people, again, who won't leave, make all the rules, make these pandemics or all these panics, whatever they are, bankrupt the industries. And it's like you tip the scales for their own good. that is where I think, again, the big, beautiful spending, when you look at it, you look at even the defense budget, which no one wants to cut defense because of what it even says. I mean, it's defense, don't cut that.
Right.
But that's also how these tricky people sneak stuff like, well, they're not going to cut defense, put it in defense. And then they get involved in those communities anyways, right? Like the Homeland Security and things. And then they tell you what's going on, and then you know what's up, and it gives you an opportunity to go off and do better things, I guess.
Right.
So, just turning the conversation slightly, what steps, if any, would you take to help codify President Trump's election integrity efforts and his executive order?
Election integrity is so important. I actually ran on election integrity with the U.S. Senate. I think that's why I did so well. My opponent at the time, they certified a fraudulent election. In my mind, that's treason. It's treason against the United States, and we can't have that. I was actually really shocked when President Trump endorsed her, because I'm like, wait a minute, I thought she stole the election. Because election integrity matters. I mean, it matters wholeheartedly. These people are stealing our elections, and they're doing it through the democratic process now. They're doing it through voter rolls. So yes, we've got to codify it. I think it's good that he went through the process. Sometimes you got to go through things to really understand them. And obviously he understands it. So I'm going to trust his leadership on this one. But election integrity, like I said, it starts beyond even just November. It starts with the propaganda that we allow the parties to get away with while the state pays the dime, right? It starts with, like I said, I'm kind of poking. I laugh a little bit about those straw polls, but it's just ridiculous. I mean, then they print these things like it's true, and they don't let certain candidates on if they haven't checked your money. Like all these just different election integrity, right? Election integrity is called, we're here to find a representative who speaks truth and represents us. And it's all the pigs in the party. They're the ones that we're really looking at. So again, there's always these election integrity things, but it's literally to put certain candidates out front that are selling bigger agendas, selling big pharma agendas, selling propaganda agendas. So that's where election integrity really starts as soon as the game starts. But yeah, of course, protect the ballot box, because that's how they try to get away with it, literally. And they do, and they have. I mean, this is real. This is real. It really happened.
So we understand it's an invite only group, but what are your thoughts on if you were to receive an invite from the Freedom Caucus in terms of being a member and joining them?
I appreciate that, because I hadn't actually thought of that until recently. I realized that the Freedom Caucus, I probably fit right in. They were the ones that held out on the spending. Not even to be, because like I said, this is nothing against President Trump. Okay. It's not that some of the things weren't good things, but at some point, folks, are we really for freedom, or are we just kind of talking about it? Like, the answer is no. If to shut the government down means shut the government down, then shut the government down, folks. It's going to take something drastic, which they're willing to do. Okay. They were willing to shut your business down. Okay?
Right.
And we all know that the truth is the states, when they shut the federal government down, the state's going to pick it up anyway. So the state's going to pick it up. We're going to maintain our borders, at least here in Tennessee. I would expect, the leadership that I know, I believe would. I would certainly join them. I would welcome them. I'd ask them to have me. They sound pretty cool. They sound what I'm in line with, but like I said, I don't know. They haven't called me. But now that I kind of have quickly identified them, they will, because I'm the guy.
Excellent. Thanks. So just changing the topic slightly, can you speak on a topic of international relations, either Ukraine or the Middle East or tariffs, and sort of speak a bit about some of your views on that topic?
Well, I guess I'll look at it in three ways. One, America first. America first. That means literally America first. When we talk about going through the national budget, America first. There's a lot of money going to countries that I really actually can't even figure out why. Not out of a hateful perspective, but when you literally look at our cities, I mean, they're talking about Memphis, they're talking about DC. And just to allow money to go to other countries before we solve their own problems is not America first. It's called trying to play diplomatic for other people, for some other game, to keep banking systems going, to keep our people in debt. I mean, it's a weird trick of the mind. So America first, let's go right through our budget. Let's cut a lot of this foreign aid again until maybe these countries can do better. There's something in the Tennessee Senate I learned when folks, again, I worked with the appropriators and they would come and ask for money. And a lot of times they say, hey, listen, this sounds like a good project, but we're not trying to pay for this forever. I mean, it's one thing to give you a little bit of help here, but you have your own way to do this, right? Because this is not a come get every single year, and unfortunately, that's not the case in Congress. They just do it every year. There's some countries they do it too, and they don't even blink an eye. They don't ask a question. And unfortunately, if we're going to question our leaders, I'm absolutely 100% going to question every foreign leader, no matter where they're from, period. And that's that. The tariffs, President Trump has been right to do the tariffs. One, because we deserve it. Two, because it makes good business sense. And three, they don't have to be forever, but they can pay down the debt. If we need to look at embargoes and some other ways, I would certainly urge President Trump. It's just time to try. Look, you can try things, and if it doesn't work, it's okay to say, okay, well, look, we try it for a little bit. We'll try something else. We want to keep our men and women boots off the ground overseas the best we can. It's one thing to have some military bases that we, for our own national security, but this expansionism is ridiculous. One, we don't want to expand too much where we just get their people over here because now they have reasons to claim asylum. I don't want that. I think the American people are really tired of that, actually. Again, we want good foreign policy, but foreign policy is probably kind of restarting. I mean, this is in the 2020s, the 1920s to the year 2000, those years of foreign aid are over, right? We're literally in a new world global economy where new global leaders. I mean, really, when we talk about it, I would really point at people like Musk, Bezos, Zuckerberg. These people are kind of the new Rockefellers of the world. These people are trying to really get world influence. We let one African in our White House, right? And he has all the intel and information of the United States, right? And we just kind of clapped for it. I wasn't clapping. I definitely was not clapping. This is very serious stuff. They're posing as people for America, and they tell us what we want to hear only to get what they need. And America pays the price, and it's literally killing us. So, look, I'm America first. I'm for us. I'm not rose-colored glasses on the rest of the world. I will befriend the rest of the world for sure because America is a beacon of hope. But it's time to really be thoughtful. These people really hate us, and coming with boots and guns is obvious. They're destroying us in other ways, and I'm well aware of it, and I'm not going to let it happen.
Well, we've got to wrap up on time here. The last question we will get to is if you had to name just one single experience that sets you up to be, for this position, for Congressman, for District 7, what would that experience be?
Without question, I would tell you the real education of my life really was working in the Tennessee Senate. I loved this sounds so cliche, but I loved every single day of that, even the rough days. When you really could help someone who really needed your help, called you, didn't know what to do, they lost their job, couldn't get a hold of anybody on unemployment, and you really could facilitate something for them. When you had the opportunity to help the county find what they needed for the bridge. When I got to aid the members, I mean, I got to sit in a lot of rooms because of who my boss was, and really learn from the highest levels of government here in Tennessee and sit with the folks that run this. That's an education I really was blessed for. I never saw it coming in my life, but it really had set me up. And like I said, what do you do with an education like that? You feel responsible, at least when we get quit on, to say, hey, if you just send me for 6 months, I'll go. And if you don't want term limits on me that quick, I'll come back and I'll think about our housing. I'll think about our healthcare. I'll think about food and groceries, the affordability, what it is to live. I'm a real guy. Those are the education, when you don't have health insurance and you got to go to the doctor, that's a real experience that sets you up to say, hey, listen, there's people who are really struggling. When you have to figure out how to get a house loan and hey, there's people, how do you get these things? So I'm a real guy. I mean, I would tell you again, my 11 years of experience, but just being me and walking with everyday people has also prepared me. I'm ready to go.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tres Wittum.
Thank you. It's been awesome. I hope you'll have me back soon. Congressman Wittum.